Today we're diving deep into Atomic Habits by James Clear, a book that has quietly become one of the most important guides to personal change of our generation. Millions of people have used it to build routines that actually stick. And once you understand why it works, you start to see why almost everything you've been taught about self-improvement has been backwards. Here's the problem this book solves. Most of us think transformation comes from bigger goals. Lose 20 pounds. Write the book. Build the business. We chase the outcome, and when the discipline runs out, usually somewhere around week 3, we blame ourselves. We assume we lack willpower or drive, or some special gene that other more successful people seem to have been born with. James Clear says that diagnosis is wrong. He opens the book with a story from his own life, a freak baseball accident in high school that left him in a medically induced coma with a shattered face and permanent damage to his vision. The slow, patient road back taught him something that would eventually reshape how an entire generation thinks about growth. Change doesn't come from one dramatic decision. It comes from tiny adjustments, repeated so consistently that they compound into something almost unrecognizable from where you started. That's the whole philosophy in a single sentence. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Sit with that for a second, because it quietly dismantles most of the self-help advice you've ever absorbed. Goals are about the results you want. Systems are about the daily processes that lead you there. And Clear makes a convincing case that obsessing over goals is close to useless. What actually decides your outcome is the architecture of your day, the habits running in the background whether you're paying attention to them or not. This is why two people can want the exact same thing and end up in completely different places. It's rarely because one of them wanted it more. It's because one of them built a system that made success nearly automatic, and the other leaned on motivation that quietly ran out. There's something else worth naming right up front, because it reframes the entire book. Clear isn't offering a productivity hack or a 30-day challenge. He's making an argument, backed by neuroscience, behavioral psychology, and his own personal history, that the version of yourself you're trying to become is built one small, repeatable choice at a time, not through a single burst of willpower on New Year's Day. That reframe alone is worth the next 30 minutes. Over the next half hour, we'll walk through the ideas that make this book so quietly radical. Why your identity, not your willpower, is the real engine of change. The 4 simple laws that govern every habit you have, good or bad. And how to actually put this into practice, starting today, not someday. Before we go further, if you genuinely love books like this, the kind that don't just entertain you but actually change how you operate day to day, it would mean a lot if you hit subscribe, tap that like button, and turned on notifications. This channel exists for people who want to think more clearly and live more intentionally, and there's a lot more of that on the way. Alright, let's get into it. Let's start with the idea that quietly underpins the entire book, the concept of identity-based habits. Most people approach change from the outside in. They decide what they want to achieve, and then they figure out the process to get there. I want to run a marathon, so I'll follow a training plan. I want to save money, so I'll set up automatic transfers. That's outcome-based change, and it works, sometimes. But Clear argues there's a deeper, more durable layer underneath it. He breaks change into 3 layers, like the rings of an onion. The outer layer is outcomes, what you get. The middle layer is process, what you do. And the innermost layer, the one most people never touch, is identity, what you believe about yourself. Here's why that matters so much. If your goal is to quit smoking, and someone offers you a cigarette, saying no thanks, I'm trying to quit, is very different from saying no thanks, I'm not a smoker. The first answer still ties your identity to smoking, just with a rule bolted on top. The second answer comes from someone who has already become a different kind of person. And people who have become a different kind of person don't need willpower to say no. It's simply not who they are anymore. This is the real reason most habits fail. We try to change our behavior without changing the belief underneath it. Clear puts it simply, every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. No single vote transforms your identity overnight, but each one adds a small piece of evidence. Go to the gym, even for 5 minutes, and you've cast a vote for, I am someone who exercises. Skip it, and you've cast a vote the other way. Over months and years, those votes accumulate into a self-image, and that self-image becomes the thing quietly steering your decisions, often without you noticing. This is also where the book's most famous idea comes in, the mathematics of tiny gains. Clear asks you to imagine improving by just 1% every day. It sounds almost meaningless in the moment. But compounded over a year, 1% better each day doesn't lead to a small improvement. It leads to becoming roughly 37 times better than where you started. The reverse is just as true. Get 1% worse each day, and within a year you've nearly bottomed out. The catch, and this is the part most people miss, is that this compounding is invisible in the short run. Clear calls this the plateau of latent potential. Picture an ice cube sitting in a room as the temperature slowly climbs, from 25 degrees, to 26, to 27 to 30. Nothing visibly happens. The ice cube looks exactly the same the whole time. Then the temperature hits 32 degrees, and suddenly, seemingly out of nowhere, it starts to melt. The work wasn't wasted during those earlier degrees. It was being stored quietly until it crossed a threshold. This is why most people quit habits too early. They're standing at 29 degrees, convinced nothing is working, right before the breakthrough they can't yet see. So how do habits actually form on a mechanical level? Clear breaks every habit down into a 4-part loop. First comes the cue, a trigger that tells your brain to start a behavior, because it predicts a reward is coming. Then the craving, the motivational spark, the want behind the behavior. Then the response, the actual habit itself, the thought or action you take. And finally the reward, the payoff that satisfies the craving and, crucially, teaches your brain that this loop is worth repeating next time. There's a story Clear opens the whole book with, before he even gets to the science, that captures this idea perfectly. In 2003, the British cycling team was frankly mediocre. Nearly 100 years without a Tour de France win, and one of the worst records in the sport. Then a new coach, Dave Brailsford, took over with a strategy he called the aggregation of marginal gains. Instead of searching for one big breakthrough, his team looked for a 1% improvement in absolutely everything. Redesigning bike seats for comfort. Rubbing alcohol on tires for better grip. Having riders wear electrically heated shorts to keep muscle temperature ideal before a race. Even testing dozens of pillows and mattresses so athletes slept better on the road. None of these individually meant anything. Stacked together within 5 years, that same team was dominating the sport at the Olympic and Tour de France level. Nobody would have believed that redesigning a pillow could win a gold medal. But that's the entire thesis of this book in miniature. Small things, compounded relentlessly, produce results that look like magic from the outside and feel like nothing at all while you're doing them. Every habit you have, the good ones and the ones you wish you didn't have, runs through this exact same loop: cue, craving, response, reward. And once you understand the mechanics, you gain something most people never get: the ability to consciously redesign your own behavior instead of drifting through it on autopilot. That's exactly where the next section takes us. Out of that 4-part loop, cue, craving, response, reward, Clear builds what he calls the 4 laws of behavior change. They're deceptively simple. To build a good habit, make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying. To break a bad one, you simply invert each law. Make it invisible, make it unattractive, make it difficult, make it unsatisfying. Let's take the first 2. The first law, make it obvious, deals with the cue. Most of us have almost no awareness of what actually triggers our behavior throughout the day. Clear opens this section with an experiment run in Dutch train stations. Researchers wanted to know why people littered so much. So they cleaned the stations completely, removed all the trash, and watched what happened. Littering barely dropped. Then on the ground, They stenciled footprints leading toward the trash cans. Littering fell by nearly half. Nobody told commuters what to do. The environment simply made the desired behavior obvious, and people followed the cue without even registering it as a decision. This leads to one of the most practical tools in the whole book, habit stacking. Instead of trying to attach a new habit to a specific time, which is unreliable because your schedule shifts, you attach it to a habit you already do without fail. The formula is simple: after I do my current habit, I will do my new habit. After I pour my morning coffee, I will meditate for 1 minute. After I take off my work shoes, I will change into my workout clothes. You're not inventing a new cue out of thin air. You're borrowing one that's already wired into your day. Clear also borrows a trick from Japanese train conductors called pointing and calling. Conductors don't just glance at a signal, they physically point at it and say its status out loud. This tiny extra step forces the brain out of autopilot and reduces operational errors dramatically, in some studies by close to 90%. You can use a version of this yourself. Before you eat something, say out loud, or even just think clearly, exactly what you're about to eat and why. Before you open your phone, name what you're about to do with it. That small moment of conscious naming interrupts the mindless slide from cue straight into response, and it's often enough, all on its own, to change the outcome. There's also a related tool worth mentioning here: the implementation intention. Instead of a vague goal like "I'll exercise more," Clear recommends a specific formula: I will behavior at time in location. I will meditate for 1 minute at 7 a.m. in my kitchen. Vague intentions rely on remembering to feel motivated. Specific ones remove the guesswork entirely, because the cue is baked directly into your calendar and your environment. Environment plays an enormous role here too, arguably a bigger one than motivation ever will. Clear tells the story of a hospital that wanted nurses to wash their hands more often between patients. Reminders and posters barely moved the needle. Then they simply changed the environment. They installed sinks that were impossible to walk past without noticing, positioned directly in the flow of foot traffic. Compliance jumped dramatically, with zero appeal to willpower whatsoever. The lesson is blunt but powerful: you don't need more discipline. You need a room that makes the right choice obvious and the wrong choice invisible. Put the fruit bowl on the counter and hide the cookies in the back of a high cupboard, and you've changed your eating habits without a single ounce of self-control. Now the second law, make it attractive, deals with the craving. This is where Clear brings in dopamine, the neurochemical that drives anticipation, not just satisfaction. Your brain releases dopamine when you experience pleasure, yes, but it releases even more when you anticipate pleasure. That anticipation is what actually pulls you toward a behavior in the first place. This is why habits with built-in anticipation, like the little chime before a notification, or the visual countdown on a slot machine, are so magnetic. The craving, not the reward itself, is doing most of the heavy lifting. You can hijack this mechanism for your own benefit using a technique Clear calls temptation bundling. You pair an action you need to do with an action you want to do. Only allow yourself to listen to your favorite podcast while you're on the treadmill. Only watch your favorite show while folding laundry. Suddenly the habit you were avoiding gets wrapped in a craving you already have, and the resistance that used to sit at the starting line quietly disappears. Clear also points out that the people around us shape what feels attractive far more than we like to admit. We imitate the clothes, the many, and the powerful. If a behavior is normal in the group you belong to, or admired in the group you want to belong to, it becomes almost effortless to adopt. This is why joining a community where your desired behavior is already the norm can outperform sheer willpower every single time. You're not fighting your environment anymore. You've made it work for you. The third law, make it easy, deals with the response, the actual habit itself. And this is probably the most counterintuitive section in the whole book, because Clear argues that motivation is wildly overrated. What actually predicts whether a habit sticks is friction. Reduce the number of steps between you and the behavior, and you'll do it more, almost regardless of how motivated you feel that day. He points to a study on a photography class split into two groups. One group was told to spend the semester perfecting a single photo. The other was told to simply produce as many photos as possible, with no concern for quality. When the results were judged, the best photos came overwhelmingly from the quantity group. They took so many pictures that they were forced to experiment, fail, adjust, and improve, almost by accident. The lesson translates directly to habits. Repetition, not perfection, is what rewires the brain. And repetition only happens when the barrier to starting is low. This is where Clear introduces the 2-minute rule. Any new habit, when you're starting out, should take less than 2 minutes to do. Read before bed each night becomes read 1 page. Do 30 minutes of yoga becomes take out my yoga mat. This sounds almost too small to matter, and that's exactly the point. The goal isn't the 2 minutes itself. The goal is to master the art of showing up, because showing up is the real skill. Once showing up becomes automatic, scaling up becomes far easier than most people expect. He also talks about one-time actions, small upfront efforts that lock in good behavior for the future without requiring ongoing willpower. Buying a water filter for your tap instead of relying on daily discipline not to buy soda. Automating your savings so the decision only has to be made once. Unsubscribing from a tempting email list. These are decisions you make once that quietly remove hundreds of future decisions, each one a small opportunity for your willpower to fail you. Now the fourth and final law, make it satisfying, deals with the reward. This one solves a problem baked into human psychology itself. Our brains evolved to prioritize immediate rewards over delayed ones, because for most of human history, immediate rewards were the ones that kept you alive. The trouble is, most good habits pay off slowly. Exercise doesn't reward you for months. Saving money doesn't reward you for years. Meanwhile, bad habits, scrolling, snacking, spending, pay off instantly, and punish you slowly. That mismatch is precisely why bad habits are so easy to keep and good habits are so easy to abandon. Clear solution is to manufacture an immediate sense of satisfaction around your good habits, even a small, almost trivial one. This is where habit tracking becomes so powerful, not just as a record of what you've done, but as its own tiny reward. Marking an X on a calendar, or checking off a habit app, gives your brain visible, immediate proof of progress. It taps into something Clear calls "don't break the chain," where the growing streak itself becomes motivating, almost regardless of the original goal. Watching a chain of successes grow longer creates its own pull toward continuing it, and its own reluctance to be the one who breaks it. He also adds an important caution here, sometimes called the Goldilocks rule. Habits stay satisfying, and therefore stay alive, only when the challenge sits right at the edge of your current ability. Not so easy that it bores you, not so hard that it overwhelms you. A habit that stays too easy stops delivering the small hit of accomplishment that keeps it interesting. This is why so many people plateau and quietly quit, not because the habit stopped working, but because it stopped being satisfying to do. The fix is simple, once you notice it. Keep nudging the difficulty up in small increments, staying just past comfortable, so the habit keeps paying you back in that quiet sense of, I'm getting better at this. And it's worth saying plainly, because Clear does, that every one of these 4 laws works just as well in reverse for breaking a habit you don't want. Make the cue invisible by removing it from your environment entirely. Hide the phone in another room. Make it unattractive by reframing the story you tell yourself about it. Instead of "I need this to relax," try "this is costing me hours I'll never get back." Make it difficult by adding friction. Delete the app, unplug the television, put a time lock on the snack drawer. And make it unsatisfying by creating an immediate cost, a habit contract with a friend, where breaking your commitment costs you real money or real embarrassment, tends to work far better than sheer resolve ever does. Put all 4 laws together, and you get a genuinely different way of thinking about change. You're not relying on inspiration, or a personality trait you were or weren't born with. You're engineering an environment where the right behavior is the obvious one, the attractive one, the easy one, and the immediately rewarding one. Once those 4 things line up, the habit stops requiring effort to maintain. It simply becomes who you are. So let's bring this together. If there's one idea from Atomic Habits worth carrying with you long after this video ends, it's this: you don't need to be a different person to change your life. You just need a different system. Stop waiting to feel motivated enough, disciplined enough, or ready enough. Motivation is unreliable. Systems are not. And the deeper truth underneath that is even more freeing. Every habit is a negotiation between the person you are and the person you're becoming. You're never locked into who you've been. Every rep at the gym, every page read, every dollar saved is a small vote for a new identity, and you're allowed to start casting different votes starting today, regardless of how many votes you've cast the other way in the past. So here's the actionable piece to walk away with. Don't try to overhaul your entire life tonight. Pick one habit. Just one. Make it so small it feels almost silly. 1 page, 1 push-up, 1 minute of stillness. Attach it to something you already do without fail, using that after that habit stacking formula. Then change one thing about your environment to make it easier to start and harder to avoid. Put the book on your pillow. Put the running shoes by the door. Move the phone charger out of the bedroom. That's it. That's the whole first step. Everything else Clear writes about builds from that same unglamorous starting point: small, obvious, easy, and repeated until it becomes part of who you are. The plateau of latent potential is real, and it will test you. There will be a stretch where nothing seems to be happening, where the ice cube looks exactly the same as it did on day 1. That's not proof that it's not working. That's usually the sign that you're close. And maybe the most freeing part of this whole framework is that it removes the pressure of the fresh start. You don't need a Monday, a new month, or a new year to begin. You need one small, obvious, easy, satisfying action, done today, that casts a single vote for who you're choosing to become. Do that enough times, and you stop needing motivation altogether, because the identity has already taken over. At that point, you're no longer forcing yourself to be someone. You just are. If this video gave you something to sit with, I'd genuinely love to hear it. Drop a comment below with your favorite thought from today, the idea that hit you hardest, and let's talk about it. And if you want more conversations like this one, thoughtful, unhurried, built around books that actually change how you live, come join us. Subscribe to the Mind Master, and let's keep building better systems, one atomic habit at a time. I'll see you in the next one.